In 2025, I plan on reading things that bring me joy, and these series, they ain't it. Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Bree and this is For Pause in a Book. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the series that I am not bringing into 2025. The series I am DNFing. I am fantastic at starting series. I am not so great at finishing series. That's going to be a whole nother video. I have almost 100 series that I have either not started but own books for, or I have started and not finished. But that's a problem for later this month. Today I'm going to talk about the 39 series that I am not going to be taking into 2025. This is a mixture of books that I have owned for a really long time and have just decided I'm not going to continue the series. Maybe I unhauled the series, or there are a bunch of books in here that I started book one for a project and then I'm not going to continue it because I was only reading that book for content. So there's going to be a big mixture, but we're going to quickly talk about them. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but we are going to talk about the ones that I am DNFing, not moving into 2025. The first one is the most recent one that I DNF'd, and that is the Sacred Stones trilogy by Kate Golden. This is Donna Vonnick's Promise of Peridot, and A Reign of Rose is the third one. I read the first book earlier in the year and really enjoyed it. The second book I read just recently for a TBR 2.0 episode, and it was just fine. There are so many better romantasy books, and so I was like, I don't want to finish the series. I will give it 3 stars, so why am I wasting my time? The next series that I'm going to be DNFing is the Big Shots series by Tessa Bailey. This one, I don't know that I will officially call it a DNF. I'm not going to read the next book. What is it called? Dream Girl Drama, I believe. And that's mostly because I don't want to read that trope. I feel like it's a stepbrother, stepsister dynamic. That's just not for me. No, thank you. I liked Fangirl Down. I did not like the Au Pair Affair, so it's already leaving me on kind of a negative feeling. I don't need to read anything else. I am DNFing the Radiant Emperor duology. I read She Who Became the Sun and enjoyed it, and then I never continued on with He Who Drowned the World, and I feel like at this point I would have to reread She Who Became the Sun to read the next one because I don't remember what happened, and I've just heard very mid things about the duology in itself, especially the second book, and so I don't want to push myself to do that. I DNF'd the Hollow Kingdom series by Kira Jane Buxton. I actually read the first one last year and enjoyed it, but I feel like it stood alone as its own book, and I didn't own the second book, so I was like, I don't want to continue on with this series. It's not something that I was gravitating towards. I don't need to continue the series. It worked as a standalone. And then a couple of series that I owned but were on my series spreadsheet, but I didn't actually start them, but they're on here and they're not going to go into next year's spreadsheet. The Bargainer series by Laura Thalassa. This one, I could be convinced to come back to, specifically if I enjoy her Four Horsemen series, but I did unhaul this one. Also, the Drowning Empire, The Bone Shard Daughter. I've heard good things about the first book in the series. However, I think that it steadily goes downhill, and so why am I going to start a series that by the third book is not going to be good? I am DNFing the God King Chronicles. I purchased the first book a long time ago because everybody was talking about it in Cassidy's Patreon, and then nobody liked the sequel, and so then I just never picked up the first book. It didn't have an audiobook. It's very small print. I'm never going to reach for this book. I DNF'd and unhauled The Islands of Blood and Storm by Kaysen Callender. This is a fantasy duology, the first one being Queen of the Conquered, and I think it's YA, and so it's not something that I was gravitating towards. I've had it for a long time, and I just knew that I wasn't going to read it. I recently just DNF'd and unhauled what is it called? The Hollow Star Saga, the first one being A Dark and Hollow Star. I've heard not great things about the sequel, and so that was the reason why I never picked up the first book. Again, why am I going to pick up a series? Why am I going to start a series? Especially if I really enjoyed the first one, only for the second one to let me down and disappoint me. When I unhauled it, a lot of the comments in that video were like, oh yeah, it feels very YA. It doesn't actually feel like a new adult romantasy. So I feel comfortable with this decision. And then I DNF'd the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy. The first one being The Deal is the one that I owned. The sports romance, college romance, it's not something that I'm going to gravitate towards. I am not in my contemporary romance era, so I definitely let that one go. I'm DNFing the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson, and I know, don't come for me. I enjoyed the first one, but it was 4 years ago that I read that book. Maybe 3 years ago, something like that. It was a long time ago. I don't think that I remember what went on in that book, and I also remember being a little bit lost even while I was reading it. And I think it's just because sci-fi is just just not a genre for me. It's not one that I normally gravitate towards. I don't want to finish it. I DNF'd the Finley Donovan series, and I actually unhauled these earlier this year because of the St. Martin's boycott. I wasn't going to read the fourth one because of it, because it was just going on and on and on and on. And then like some reviews that I had seen of that book were not that great. And I was like, I think we should just leave this on a good, nice trilogy, and I don't need to continue on with the series. I'm DNFing the Atlas series by Olive E. Blake. Technically, this was a DNF from like 2 years ago because I read the Atlas 6 and it was fine. It was like 3.5 stars, but then I DNF'd the Atlas Paradox, and then I just like kept it on my series spreadsheet and I kept moving it from year to year. And I was gonna go back to it. That's not happening. We're officially taking it off the tracker now. Actually, the next couple, I have not read any books from this series this year, and so that kind of is what solidified, hey, I should probably just DNF this. Like the Shades of Magic series. I read the new series this past December for last year's Goodreads Choice Awards, and I didn't love it. And I think it's just a matter of I like some of V.E. Schwab's writing and not all of it. And I had read A Darker Shade of Magic years ago, and I would have to reread it, but I don't really want to. I'm not going to read them. The Nevermore series, this one I unhauled just because the fourth book was getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. I think it may have finally come out. I can't remember if it did or if it's gonna come out. I don't know, like it just kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So I read the first two, they were fine, but I held off on the third one because I was like, well, we don't even have a release date for the fourth book. So I just put it off, and then I forgot what happened in any of the books. I'm also really not reading middle grade right now. I DNF'd the Girls of Paper and Fire series. I read the first one back in 2018 and absolutely loved it. It made my best books of the year. And then I read the second one. I stood in line at BookCon for an arc of this book. Okay, it was one of the very first physical arcs that I ever received. But obviously it wasn't like sent to me. It was because I was at a convention. And I didn't love it. I gave it 2 stars. It was a traveling book. It very much felt like middle book syndrome. And I was like, it's fine. It'll come back in, like, it'll be strong again in book 3. And I tried to read it last year and I DNF'd it. It felt so like very young YA. And obviously when I was reading books in 2018, I was just getting into fantasy, so young YA did not bother me that much. But now I'm just not the target audience, and that's fine. There's definitely people that will love and enjoy this book. In fact, I gave this series to my niece who loved them, but like they're not for me. I also DNF'd Legendborn. I read Legendborn and absolutely loved it the year that I read it, but then I never continued on with Bloodmarked, and then the people that had read it were like, oh, you have to reread Legendborn, and I was just, again, like one of those things, it's like, I don't want to reread series every time a new book comes out if they're going to come out every 2 years. And I think the new one is coming out this upcoming season, quarter, something, I don't know, but I'm not going to pick it up. All right, and then some more that I did read the first book of this year, the Kingsman Football Stars. I read this book, I didn't even realize it was a series, but I read You Had Your Chance at Lee Burrows for the Super Bowl vlog that I did back in February, and I hated it. I hated that book. So I'm not going to continue the series. I DNF'd Dune, like I DNF'd the book Dune, so I'm definitely DNFing the series. This book is one of those things where like the movie is better, and we're just going to stick with that because the book is dry, and I cannot do that. I DNF'd the Nightshade Crown series by Hannah Witten. I read The Foxglove King for actually like a booktuber favorites, and I didn't love it, and so I didn't pick up The Hemlock Queen. Also, I haven't heard fantastic things about the second one, so yeah, I'm kind of glad that I DNF'd it. I DNF'd The Burning Kingdoms by Tasha Suri because I DNF'd The Jasmine Throne this summer. This one is disappointing to me because in theory, on paper, this book should be a Brie book. This series should be a Brie book. And I didn't care about this book at all. So I DNF'd it, which makes me sad. I also DNF'd Reset by Serena Dolan. This was a YA dystopian book. I read the first one during Amazing Readathon this year and did not like it. I had special editions of this that I had gotten in a book box. And yeah, I DNF'd it and sold them. This one got lost in the mix, but I also DNF'd Amari and the Night Brothers, or The Supernatural Investigations by B.B. Alston. Again, just because I'm not reading middle grade. I owned the second one, and then I know kind of the same thing as Nevermore. The third book kind of got pushed back, and so I didn't read it. That one I know is out, but I have no desire to pick up middle grade at all. A couple more series where I owned the first books, but then just decided to unhaul them, or I DNF'd them. I DNF'd The Girl in the Stars, so the Book of the Ice series by Mark Lawrence. I was having a hard time, like, just with the writing style of it, and yeah, I just never finished it. I had to put the book down for another project and then never went back to it. Same thing with Raybearer by Jordan F. Waco. This one I DNF'd the book. I read about 30% of it, and I know this is like a very controversial opinion because people love that book, but I was just not driving with the writing style. Same with the Middle Mist trilogy by Claire Legrand. This is A Crown of Ivy and Glass. I know the second book just came out, but I read about 20% of it, and it was a very dry book, and I didn't care about the main character, which is, you know, you kind of need to do that in a romantasy. I also DNF'd The Ivory Key, and this is a duology, The Ivory Key duology by Akasha Raman. So this one was unhauled. And then lastly, some books that I read the first series of for projects and things like that, but I will not be continuing. The Afterlife Experiment by Sam Weiss. It's the Altered Planes series. Actually, there isn't a second book that's been announced for this, but this was a book that I read for Spiffbo that I didn't really love. I also DNF'd House of the Dead by Nikki Palpretto. This book, I read Bonesmith, and then Ghostsmith was the second one that came out, and this one had a lot of hype for it. I should have liked this one. It's like YA necromancers, kind of like Gideon the Ninth. It was just fine. It was fine. I cannot get lighting to work with me today, so apologize that I just got really dark. The sun went behind the one cloud there is today. Anyways, DNF'd the Mind F series. I read the first two for a booktuber, like Can I Trust My Booktube Friends series, and it was fine. Like, it was fine. I think this book would have actually done better if it was just one book rather than like 5 little episodes. Does that make sense? Anyways, I have no desire to go back to it. In that same video, I also DNF'd the WizTech series by Ashley and Rosetech. Read the first one, did not like it. It was like a contemporary, like, mafia type romance. Not for me. And then also the Madison Kate series by Tay James. I read Hate, and that one will probably end up on my worst books of the year. I did not like it at all. So, obviously not going to be continuing the series. And then last two are just a couple of random ones. I am DNFing the Riverfall Chronicles by Jacqueline Hagan. This one, The Wickwire Watch, was a finalist for Spiffbo last year, and this one has had a lot of praise. A lot of people have loved this one. It just did not necessarily work for me. So, don't listen to me. I'm in the minority. And then I DNF'd the Fallen Gods series, God Killer. I read that. It was 3 stars. It was fine. It's a journey book. I didn't love it. And so because of that, even though I only read it like, what, 7 or 8 months ago, I could not tell you what happened. And I'm not going to continue the series. So, although, let me tell you, she wins the cover contest because they just announced the 3rd cover for this, and it is gorgeous. And I wish I loved the series, but I don't. All right, I think that's all of them. There's actually a couple that I'm not talking about, but they will spoil some future videos that are coming up. But there were 39 series that I am taking off the list for 2025 as I move into my new spreadsheet. What is a series that you are not going to bring into 2025? Let me know down in the comments. If you want to stick around for a little bit longer, I am going to put a video right here that YouTube thinks that you're going to like. I will see you there. And if you're new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little button that you can do so down below the video. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, and my Patreon are linked in the description down below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye! Oh, I totally forgot. You need an emoji, don't you? Let's put the chicken emoji. I don't know why. That sounds good. Okay, bye.